Welcome to the inaugural episode of Yankees Coast to Coast. I am your host, Mike Carbone from Dallas, Texas.
I'm Auden Mitchell from New York City.
And I'm Blake Blackburn from Los Angeles. We're here to bring you Yankees content from all parts of the United States. So let's get right into it.
All right, fellas, what do you guys think about the 2024 lineup? I'll let you go first, Blake.
Man, I like it. So far we've added Soto and Verdugo to this lineup, which is a lineup in the past couple years, which I think would have benefited from a lot more left-handed bats. So I think we've done a good job going out to make this a more balanced lineup. So it should be interesting to see how Booney mixes things up. He likes to shake things up a lot, but I think it's going to be a lot better for us being a lot more balanced top to bottom. So I'm excited for that. Me personally, if I was in Booney's shoes, I think I would, with Dominguez being out, to start the year. So taking that into consideration, I think if I were to be in his shoes, I'd probably put together a lineup, some similar to something like this, where I first off would want to, kind of break up the righties and lefties, kind of have an alternate lineup like that. But I'd lead off Alex Verdugo. I know that might be a hot take to some, but a little bit more of a contact guy, get on base a little bit more in front of, the big bats. But I took Verdugo at first. I'd have Judge hitting second, Soto three. Depending on production, I'd put Torres four, Rizzo five, Stanton six. And if Stanton were to get back to, the Stanton of old, I would consider flipping him and Gleyber Torres. Then to follow up, I'd have DJ hit seventh, and then Wells or Trevino eight, and then Volpe in that second kind of leadoff spot down there in the 9-hole, playing shortstop. That's, I think, what I would do. I mean, I like the way that kind of looks on paper. It's a lot more balanced than previous years. So, that's a lot of things to be excited about.
I agree. I got the same exact lineup written down here. I think depending on the day, if it was a righty or a lefty starter, I'd swap DJ and Doogie just depending on the situation. But Soto is such a nice number three bat to come in. He's durable, which is something the Yankees have needed, with injuries being our problem for the last how many years? 4 or 5 more. Arguably best young player in the league. And on top of that, he said he's open to an extension. So I think it'd be really nice if we can see him in the short porch banging out home runs for the next 10 years or so.
For sure, I agree, Auden. So I'm definitely on the same train with you guys for a right-handed lineup, or for a right-handed pitcher. For lefties, I would have DJ leading off. Then I'd put Soto. I'd switch Judge and Soto. I'd put Soto in the 2 spot and then Judge in the 3-hole, just to kind of balance it out a little bit. And then 4-hole, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. I would hope that Rizzo can come back if he's the guy he is before. I mean, Rizzo has hit lefties well historically. So from that standpoint, I would put him in the cleanup spot. And then, you're kind of tinkering with whether who is doing best, between Gleyber and Stanton. Those guys are interchangeable, 5 and 6. And then from there, I would assume that Trevino would be catching it it could be Trevino against lefties. I prefer him to hit those days, but also it depends on the pitcher too. So it kind of just depends on the day. But
Yeah.
from there, at in the 7 spot, I would like to have him, and then I'm not sure if I'd want to have Verdugo in the lineup against lefties. He struggled a bit. That's where things get kind of a little bit dicey, but I really like to see Volpe take a leap next year. Maybe see him in the leadoff spot against lefties. I know when he closed his stance last year, I know he wasn't, wasn't so pull happy, wasn't pulling off everything. So we'll see what happens there, but that's what I would do against lefties, and that kind of gets us into the season. We'll see what happens, but obviously that's what I'd like to have for opening day.
That balance, adding Soto and Verdugo, that's just make it a lot easier for us to come up with these different lineups, whether it's facing righties or lefties. So I just think having those guys is just going to make it that much better for us, and how we are able to put together lineups and that stuff like that.
Well, talking about
Definitely.
balance in the leadoff spot, you've got Jason Dominguez, who obviously is out with an injury, but is expected back sooner than later. He's just turning 21. He's still got plenty of speed. I think him at the leadoff spot when he comes back and fully healthy. That in front of Judge and Soto, and then Glaber, Rizzo, whatever it may be. Him being a switch
Hmm.
hitter up there, that's going to be perfect.
Yeah, I think he should be the leadoff hitter once he comes back, assuming he's the guy he was before he got hurt. Obviously, he's probably going to be a little bit rusty, and it might take a little bit of time, but I think he's got all the tools to be the kind of guy that you want to have get the most at bats throughout the year.
Hmm.
Definitely, especially with such raw talent that he has. Really, I'm definitely a fan of forcing him out there and seeing what we got with him, man. If that's getting him 600 plus at bats a year. I mean, obviously not this year, but in future years, just giving him as many at bats as he can. Because I mean, when he got the at bats last year, I mean, he was definitely pretty productive there in those few weeks before he got hurt.
For
Hmm.
sure.
And Blake mentioned Volpe as like a second leadoff guy batting ninth. With Volpe's speed and then Dominguez's speed following that, those two speedsters right in front of Judge and Soto, an extra base hit will get you 2 runs easily.
Hmm. Yeah, no doubt. I guess that gets us into our next topic with the pitching rotation and the addition of Marcus Stroman. I mean, that's pretty crazy. I mean, I know a lot of people are blocked by Marcus Stroman, and he's a pretty polarizing guy. I mean, he's got great numbers throughout his career. Uh, I personally am really excited to see what he's got. I know him coming home, that's a big deal to a lot of people and to him, of course. And I just think his tenacity that he pitches with and just the raw emotion, I think that's something that's lacked in recent years for the Yankees. I mean, you go back to the championship 90s teams. I mean, those guys, played with all their emotion on their sleeve. Paul O'Neill, David Wells, David Cohn, Andy Pettit. Those guys got fired up when they did something good. And I think that's something that's lacked in recent years. So adding Stroman and Verdugo really, and Soto, I mean, those three really passionate guys, but I think Stroman's going to be a really good fit. He he yields a lot of ground balls, and that's something that, historically speaking, has been very good at Yankee Stadium. So I'm very excited to see what he's got. And, I hope that we could potentially, get one more guy. I know we're looking at Cole, Stroman in the 2 spot, or Rodon. I'm not sure. That's 2 and 3. And then Clark Schmidt in the 4 spot, and then who do we got 5?
We got Nestor
Nestor, yeah, I mean Nestor's probably 4,
4,
and
yeah.
4, and then Schmidt's 5, and obviously, I mean, I trust Schmidt more than most people, but I like his stuff. But
Yeah, I
Nestor, I
mean,
don't know. I feel like he might be a flash in the pan still. I hope I'm wrong about that, but we'll see. Go ahead, Mike.
yeah. Um, Now you're talking about Stroman. I know that's an interesting one. Obviously, with he's got a past with Yankee fans and stuff like that. But he is a hometown kid, so it's good to have him back playing for his hometown team. Seen on some Instagram posts from him that he seems pretty excited about it. So hopefully everybody can kind of put that past beef behind us, and as we get into you know the next year, him being on our team, I think the fans are going to grow to love him over time. Like Mike said, he plays with passion and something that, definitely is needed in our clubhouse. So, yeah, I'm excited about it too. Obviously, not a huge risk. I mean, not paying him a whole lot of money, but definitely somebody who can come in and be productive in that rotation, which was a definite need, after missing out on, Yamamoto, a couple other guys. But like Mike said, I still would like, to add another piece, whether that's making a trade for Corbin Burns or excuse me, Dylan Cease, or, going after Blake Snell, which, maybe now might not be as likely as, a couple weeks ago, but definitely would like to see uh, another arm in that rotation, whether that be free agent signing or trade.
Yeah, honestly, I was pretty skeptical about this deal at first, obviously, because of all the comments that Stroman's made about Yankees in the past. And I'm also worried about how they'll fit in with that clubhouse, given that he has that quote that he had on Twitter where he said, "Besides Cole, there's no current Yankee pitcher who will be anywhere in my league over the next 5 to 7 years. Their pitching always falls in the end. That lineup should be winning World Series left and right, yet they're in a drought. LOL." That being said, he can easily, relieve himself of those comments performing well in New York. He's got the skin for it. Um, I think it's a really necessary move as well. Schmidt and Cole were really our only two righties in that rotation. So adding Stroman as a righty is a pretty important piece of that rotation.
Agreed for sure, man. Yeah, I mean, my only concern with Stroman is that he hasn't reached 140 innings the past few years. Like he's been a guy been able to get around 25-ish starts, which is solid. But Yankees only had was it two starters that had below a 4 ERA last year?
Yeah, probably.
Stupid like that. Yeah.
I think so. But he's a lifetime 3.65 ERA guy, so I'm very excited to have him.
I mean, we know Rodon didn't have a sub 4. We know that for sure.
No, yeah,
I'm-
that was rough. I'm hoping he comes back and pitches real strong. I
I'm
have a
banking on
good
him
feeling
to come
about it.
back.
Hey, I know you saw that photo. I believe his wife posted the other day. He's looking slim,
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
Giancarlo. So
Yeah.
that's kind of, maybe that'll
Yeah.
play well for him.
I think so. I think his back issues he had last year kind of promoted that extra weight he had on.
Yeah.
I think that if he's got that settled down, that'll definitely help in terms of his overall conditioning. But speaking of comebacks, let's get into team awards. Who do you guys think will be the team MVP this year?
I mean, I don't want to be that basic guy, but I mean, if he's on the field and healthy and plays a lot of games, I mean, it's gonna be Aaron Judge, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you look at the last, obviously 2 years ago, 62 home runs, playing a lot of games. Last year, he missed those games with that toe injury, but he was still on pace to hit 57 home runs. So that's, on pace to hit, almost 120 home runs in 2 years. That's just unbelievable. And it
Mhm.
seems just like, when Judge is going, the rest of the guys are going. So that's what, to me, stands out as, that's valuable. He kind of rubs off on the other guys when he's playing well. They kind of play off of him. So in terms of most valuable player, I mean, like I said, I don't want to be basic, but to me, it's got to be Judge.
I'm in agreement there.
Yeah, so I'll try to mix things up. I think it's going to be Soto this year, just from the standpoint that I mean, if there's anybody that's a lock to play virtually every game between him and Volpe, I love Soto's talent. I love the dynamic of him being a left-handed hitter at Yankee Stadium. I mean, he's totally set up to have a career year and a walk year too, going into free agency. I mean, it just all the writing's on the wall for him just to have a monster season. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see what happens because he's not a super pull hitter, and I don't want him to get like that. I mean, that's what makes him so special is obviously his patience at the plate. His eye is second to none, and also the fact that he drives the ball to all fields,
Oh yeah.
which might take away for a few home runs. Him going to deep left center field at Yankee Stadium, he's probably going to lose a few home runs there, but that's perfectly fine to me. I mean, he just does what he does. He's going to have a phenomenal season, I think, and I think that's going to lead to him having his best year yet, which is pretty scary considering the gaudy numbers he's already put up.
Sure. Either one.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll take it. I'll take it. Yeah,
not too many teams have two guys of that caliber who you kind of can't really choose. I mean, sure,
Yeah.
Soto could easily go out there and win AL MVP. So could Judge. I mean, they're both obviously 1 and 2 best guys in our lineup.
Yeah,
So,
last
if they're
few
both
years-
clicking, then that bodes well for the Yankees, of course.
For sure. What do you guys think about Team Cy Young? I know Garrett Cole's, basically a tap in there. I think that should be pretty universal. I mean, the guy literally won Cy Young, so
Definitely. If we want to go in and say, excluding Garrett Cole, who do we think the team Cy Young will be? Just because, I mean, it, like you said, hands down, it's Garrett Cole. He's the best pitcher in baseball. But if you exclude Garrett Cole, speaking on that energy that he brings and all that, man, I'd really love Marcus Stroman to come out and be that guy for us. I mean, I can see it now, man, with his energy and his passion for the game. I can just see that in a sold out Yankee Stadium in a playoff game, getting a big strikeout to end an inning, coming off the mound all fired up. Like I'm ready for it. Like inject that into my veins. So excluding Garrett Cole, I'd really like to see Marcus Stroman be that guy.
I'm in agreement with you, Blake. I mean, I just love everything that he potentially brings to the table. I mean, it kind of reminds me of the days of, you remember Java Chamberlain getting really excited coming off the mound. He'd be really fired up. CC, he would get that way. It's something that this
Yeah.
team's lacked, like I've hinted at, and uh, it truly would be awesome to see him,
Yeah.
win a World Series here. Hometown
Yeah.
kid. I mean, he was a Yankee fan growing up, diehard, and that would just be the ideal situation. And
I mean,
him or Rodon.
Mhm.
I'm kidding. I'm going to say Rodon. Obviously last year, 6.85 ERA. He had a terrible year. Even he himself said that he had a piece of year, word for word. Um, Including last year, since 2021, he has a record of 30-21 with an ERA of 3.38, which in hindsight to last year, that's not that bad. I think now, obviously, we talked about him slimming down. I think if he can have a healthy year without the back issues he had last year and the other left forearm injury he had going into that year, I think he's going to be the same Rodon we saw in the year before. And between 21 and 22, he had a combined ERA of like
Yeah.
260 or something ridiculous like that. So I think outside of Cole, obviously, like we said, best pitcher in baseball without a doubt, it'll be Carlos Rodon.
Love to see that too, man. Obviously, we're invested in him pretty heavily, so anything for him to get back to that old form from a couple years back would be great.
And I guess that takes us into our next award, which would be Comeback Player of the Year. And like I just said, Rodon would be my guy for that award.
Yeah. I'll be different. I mean, I Rodon's got to be up there. I mean, he's one of those guys that's just got the ability to come back and leave last year behind him and build to have a pretty good year. But for me, I'd like there's been a lot of talk about him and he's leaning out, getting into better shape, try to stay healthy a little bit. I got Giancarlo Stanton, man. He's been a good guy for us in the past, and I know the last couple of years have been a little bit rough, but I'd love to see Giancarlo kind of get back at least for another couple of years, get back to how he was, and hitting that ball 500 feet. Because when he's on, it just makes us that much better. Because in all honesty, I mean, Aaron Judge, that's about it in terms of players in all of baseball who can hit the ball harder than Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah, I would love that, Blake. I'm not necessarily banking on that. Just from what we've seen in recent years. I mean, it's been a year and a half or season and a half since we've seen Giancarlo be the guy that we hoped him to be. So I truly hope he proves me wrong. But in terms of comeback player of the year, I don't know if it's really a comeback, but I think somebody that takes a huge step forward is Volpe. I think we see him really see a jump in the batting average. I think he might dial it a little bit back on the power, which is perfectly fine. I mean, somebody like him, I want to see him on base more than swing for the
Definitely.
fences, especially from a shortstop. I think him wearing his approach to right center field is going to be very beneficial for him, because I think he lost a lot of at bats from just being so pull happy in the first half. And between him and Austin Wells having that chicken farm dinner, I think that served him a lot of good, and we saw a different guy in the second half. So that's my personal guy to really take a step forward and have a comeback year, which is kind of crazy to think about because he won Gold Glove and he had a 2020
Right.
season, and
Mhm.
I mean,
but
it's the
he
fact
definitely
that I think he's that guy. I mean, he's still very young. And we called him up right at the beginning of the season and said, "Hey, you're our starting shortstop now. Go get it." That's tough. I mean, that's a lot of pressure. Young kid starting shortstop for the New York Yankees right away. Boom. So, I think for him, it's just simple as he's going to get better with more at bats, more experience, and with age. So.
Sure.
I'm excited to see what Volpe's got here in year two, but that's definitely somebody who I think is going to take that next step and become a lot better hitter, especially better offensively. I mean, we already know he's pretty darn good on the defensive end, but
Yeah, I mean, I think we got a pretty good glimpse of what that version of Volpe could be in the second half. I mean, he did slump in the last 25 to 30 games, but around the summertime and early autumn, he was smacking that ball the other way.
Hey, man. And then I saw him last year at Dodger Stadium. You to get a pretty good piece on Sunday Night Baseball too. So, the guy can hit, but
And with that
it,
speed, I mean, he had what, 24 stolen bases last year, tying him at 28th across all the major leagues. He could
that
easily push for 30 or 40.
that number is going to go up, the more he gets on base. So,
for sure. You also saw Aaron Judge get a pretty good piece of his toe too, right?
I did. I was at that game. So I'm sorry to everybody. I don't want to say that I was the reason the season went south, but I was in attendance for that game, and it just seemed to like
Yeah,
at that point the season went south. But
yeah,
I blame him for it.
he did hit a
yeah.
home run that game, and I have seen him hit a lot of home runs when I've been in attendance too. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he truly is he is the heart and soul of the team for sure. But we got one more award. What do you think about reliever of the year?
I mean, coming into this year, this is probably one of the worst bullpens I've seen from the Yankees coming into opening day in some time. So my easy pick would be Holmes, just because he's been our closer the last few years. But you could easily give it to somebody like Loizica, who had it down year last year, but has been pretty good in previous years. Or even somebody like, I don't know, like Efros or something, who's coming off injury, obviously, but was pretty nasty in his little amount of time in pinstripes.
Yeah, like you
What do you
said, I
think?
mean, the list is not quite as deep as it has been in past years in terms of relief pitching, but like you alluded to, Loizaga, he's got good stuff. So, I'd like to see him come out and have a bounce back year from the past couple of years. I mean, the dude was pretty much a lights out reliever back in 2021. So he's got the stuff. He's got the pitches to navigate through some lineups there at the end of games. So based on what we have right now on the roster, my vote would go to Jonathan Loizaga. And if there's still some names out there that we could potentially add to that bullpen, which would be great. But until that happens, right now, I'll rock with Loizaga.
So I'm in agreement with you, Blake. I've always liked the Loisaga, Johnny Lasagna. Uh,
Yeah,
I mean, he's always had that electric two seam fastball, that that front door pitch to the lefties, and really get inside and jam lefty or jam righties. It's an electric pitch, and if he has control of it, I mean, there's the sky's the limit for somebody like him. Here's my daughter Sienna. Say hi, darling. You say hi, sweet girl. But so yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, ideally, I'd like to give the award to somebody that's not a Yankee right now, just because honestly, this is the weakest bullpen I can recall since about 2008. I would say before they put Phil Hughes and Jabba in the bullpen. I mean, the Yankees bullpen that year was pretty bleak. Besides Mariano, I mean,
yeah.
it was slim pickings for sure. You had uh, Kyle Farnsworth, and he was kind of hit or miss. I mean,
What a
sometimes he'd
name
be
that
good,
is.
but yeah, I'm bringing some guys out of pulling them out of a rabbit hat right now. But yeah, I remember that year, particularly 2007, same thing. I mean, basically the
Yeah.
same bullpens. And I think you had what was it? Edward Ramirez. That's another one. Trying to think of other guys, but anyway,
There's a lot of old
I
school names out there.
yeah, this is the weakest bullpen they've had in quite some time. And the one thing the Yankees have been good at is finding these diamond in the rough pitchers. They trade somebody from Pittsburgh, or somebody of that nature. But uh, ideally, I honestly wouldn't mind if we threw the bag at Hader. I think he's. I mean, first of all, a dominant lefty, somebody to replace Wandy, because I'd prefer to not have him back. Honestly, I know he's a fan favorite, but the advanced stats for him last year were pretty brutal, and I think he got bailed out by a lot of guys. So we'll see what happens, but for now, I would say Lysica.
I mean, to call Hader a replacement for Wandy would probably be a pretty big understatement. I would easily throw Hader in a
Yeah,
closer. He's
for
arguably
sure.
been the best reliever. He definitely was last year. But last few years, arguably the best reliever in baseball. And that would be such a great piece to add to that bullpen. Who, I mean, similar to Loizaga, you could say the same for guys like Marinaccio and Tommy Canley, but I just don't see it happening. You also got other guys
Right.
like Ian Hamilton, who held his own. He was pretty solid last year. But then you got like Nick Ramirez, Victor Gonzalez, Matt Crook, Cody Morris, Cody Poteet. I haven't even heard of Poteet.
Ooh,
Um, it's it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence.
no.
That's the only thing I can confidently say.
Go out and make another splash in the bullpen. I'll be feeling a lot better about the team top to bottom, especially with Stroman. But we'll see what happens.
Obviously, it'll be
Yeah.
pretty rough. He's looking for a bigger contract than Edwin Diaz of the Mets, who signed for 102 million over 5 years. So it's a lot of money to throw at a reliever. But at the end of the day, I think it would be worth it with the bullpen we have now.
Right.
Like it.
Yeah, you want to get that one guy that you can hand the ball to and say, hey,
Hmm.
3 outs, sometimes maybe
Yeah.
4 or 5 outs. Like, you're not going to find a guy like Mariano ever again, but
Mhm.
No, once in a
You
lifetime
know,
for sure.
You're going to want to get as close as you
just
can to
somebody
him.
that you feel confident with day in and day out, handing that
Mhm.
ball to finish that game.
Yeah, and I think Hader's definitely the kind of guy that you'd want to have it come in the ninth inning, and you feel about as good as you can. I mean, obviously, Holmes had his times of being really dominant. The first half of 2022, I mean, he was incredible, all-star. Uh, Chapman obviously had his times where he was, the best closer in baseball, and there's other times where he could throw a strike.
Yep.
And I honestly
And you could
don't
almost
miss
tell after
immediately
four
whether,
pitches, if
yeah,
that.
you knew if the Yankees were going to win or lose that game. But that gets us into our last topic, AL East predictions. Auden, who do you see winning the division and go from there?
Us. I mean, with this lineup and with this rotation, I think that covers the weakness we have in the bullpen. I mean, we've gone over both already, but they're just so much stronger than we've seen in previous years, especially with the lefties we've added in the lineup. I can see us taking the division and at least winning a few games in the championship series.
All right. Blake, what do you think?
On paper, bias aside, I still feel on paper that this team gives us a lot better chance than the previous few years teams to compete for the AL East title. Um, you know, Obviously health plays a major factor in that. We've definitely had our injury issues over the past several years. Just seems to be something that we can't escape. I don't know what it is, but every year it happens. So, you know, if we can stay healthy this year, man, I really like our chances. I mean, you got Baltimore's up and coming young team. They got a lot of great young hitters, but I don't really trust that rotation.
Mhm.
As much, maybe, if, they bring in another guy, but we'll see. I don't, that lineup's going to be good. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But top to bottom, I feel like we definitely have a good chance to compete. So I guess I say bias aside, but I guess bias. I'll have the Yankees winning the division, and then um, based on everybody's roster right now, I think Boston comes in fifth place, similar to last year. I mean, they have not done anything this offseason really, so um, I don't see them getting any better. So I got them, at five, and then really, I mean, even you can even include us. 1 through 4 is almost a toss up, but if I have us at one, 2, 3, and 4 with Baltimore, Tampa, and Toronto is really a toss up. I mean, I think all those teams we're all pretty even. Tampa Bay it's always a team that's going to be right there. No matter what you think of their team on paper, they just always, always, always find a way to be in contention for that. And they just, it's like a thorn in your side. Like they're one of those teams. And then, Toronto, it's just a matter of can they stay consistent? Because sometimes they look really good and other times you know, they look awful. So, that's always a team that, has some question marks for me. Like you think that they're going to be able to, contend, but then, they do some things that, kind of take them out of it a little bit. But,
Mhm.
it'll be an interesting race. A lot of good teams in the division. So, we'll see how it plays out. But, on
For sure.
paper, I like our chances.
Definitely. I do too. Uh, this is all hypothetically speaking. I think as things stand is at this very moment, say everybody stays healthy. Obviously, it won't happen. But
Yeah.
uh, say the Yankees, Orioles, Rays, Red Sox, Blue Jays, they all stay healthy. I say the Yankees finish in first place. I think just the aspect of, especially when Dominguez gets back, Dominguez, Judge,
Oh
Soto.
yeah.
I think you're going to be starting out with leads in a lot of games, and I think the
Mhm.
Yankees will just be in the kind of they'll be like a Big 12 offense, if you will. They're going to be boat racing teams from the jump, and I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on opposing teams uh, with those three guys at the top of the lineup. So just based off of that, I have the Yankees winning 100, 100, 102 games, give or take. And from there, I still love what the Orioles are doing, but they did nothing to get better this offseason. Uh-oh. CC says wrap it up. Um, but I think they'll finish second, and after that, uh, I still think Tampa Bay. I still think they'll end up finishing third this year. They always find a way to
Yeah.
be sneaky, even
Always.
losing Wander Franco. That a guy. I mean, he's as far as I'm
It's
concerned, a pretty sorry human being. But we're not going to get into all
yeah.
that. But the Rays, they still find a way. I mean, their advanced metrics with their system with analytics is
Yeah.
arguably second to none because they always find these guys that come out of nowhere. They can just throw 100 miles an hour, guys that put the ball in play and just play the game fundamentally sound. So,
Yeah.
uh,
That's why I
and
can't
they have
never write them off.
yeah, and they have a good manager too. Kevin Cash is a great manager, as much as
Yeah.
that pains me to say because he does not like the Yankees, but he's a really good manager. And then Toronto, I mean, it kind of feels like their window's closed just because of um, Vladdy. He's kind of, I don't know, he went to like what was it, June or July, to where he didn't hit a home run at home
Yeah.
last year. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, maybe he'll turn it around and have a big year, but I feel like the hype they had from a couple of years ago with him and Bichette. Bichette's obviously a great player, but
Mhm.
it's just kind of fallen off a little bit. So,
And on top of that, they
um,
lost one of their best defensive players in Matt
Sounds
Chapman.
like you and I are in agreement because I
yeah,
did write down, like I said, 2 through
Whoa.
4 is really wide open in my opinion.
for
Shuffle
sure.
them in and out. I mean, it's a division that year in and year out gets 3, sometimes 4 teams in the playoffs, or at least contending for, playoff contention. I know a couple points last year, all of our teams are above 500. So,
Yeah,
but
but I would be kind of surprised if Boston wasn't the rug man of the division
oh yeah, I think
this last year.
they're down there for sure. And then, I wrote down, like I said, 2 through 4 interchangeable, but I wrote down New York, Baltimore, Tampa, Toronto, Boston is what I wrote down.
I like it. I like it, fellas. That concludes our inaugural episode of Yankees Coast to Coast. It was a pleasure, and we'll be seeing you guys next week.
Looking forward to it. Good night, everyone.
Yep. Good night.